Have you ever wondered why some people can attract endless wealth, while others struggle no matter how hard they try? In today's video, we'll uncover some surprising truths about the energy we allow into our homes that can block money and abundance. Stay with me until the end, because I'll be revealing the 5 common things many of us unknowingly keep around that could be repelling prosperity, and the steps you can take to clear these blocks once and for all. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I encourage you to click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated on all our latest content. Your support means a lot, so if you find value in this video, please give it a thumbs up to help spread our message. I'm eager to hear your thoughts on today's topic. If you enjoy the content, please comment 1 below. If it doesn't resonate with you, leave a 0. Your feedback is crucial as it helps me create better videos that align with your interests. Now, let's get started. Welcome, dear souls in search of guidance and wisdom. I am now a woman who has lived 9 long decades on this earth. In the twilight of my journey, I find myself filled with an overwhelming desire to share the lessons I've gathered. Lessons not born from books or theories, but from living through every twist and turn life has thrown my way. At 90 years old, I am no longer weighed down by the need for approval, by the fear of judgment, or by the distractions that consume us in our youth. I have lived, loved, lost, and learned. I have been a witness to the unfolding of history, seen the rise and fall of generations, and endured the inevitable changes that time brings to every heart and every home. My life, like the lives of so many others, has been filled with moments of indescribable joy and profound sorrow. I've lived through times that may seem like ancient history to you now, eras where the world was a simpler, quieter place, yet one filled with its own struggles and turmoil. I have seen the world transform in ways that still leave me in awe. I've witnessed mankind soar beyond the stars, yet also fall into the darkest pits of despair and conflict. I have lived through wars that tore families apart and experienced the sweet relief of peace, which brought its own challenges. But more than anything, I've lived through the stories of countless people, each one carrying their own burdens, desires, and secrets. And it's in these stories, in the hidden corners of the human heart, that I have come to understand something truly profound. Infidelity is not just a modern dilemma, nor is it a mere act of betrayal between lovers. It is a reflection of the very soul of a relationship, a mirror that shows us our deepest insecurities, our unmet needs, and the silent spaces where our hearts have grown distant from one another. In my youth, infidelity was not spoken of openly. It was a topic wrapped in whispers, carried in the shadows, and hidden from the public eye. To be unfaithful was seen as a sin, a moral failing, and those who strayed from their partners were judged harshly. But as I grew older, I began to see that infidelity is not so simple. It's not merely an act of deceit or betrayal, but a complex and painful expression of human longing, of the unmet emotional needs that can fester in even the most seemingly perfect relationships. You see, infidelity does not begin with the physical act itself. No, it begins long before, in the small cracks that form over time. In the silences between 2 people who once spoke freely. In the moments when we stop seeing each other, stop hearing each other, stop caring for each other in the way we once did. I've known couples who appeared perfect to the outside world, smiling, successful, and deeply in love. But behind closed doors, their lives were filled with quiet desperation. They were strangers to one another, living under the same roof but separated by an emotional distance that grew wider with each passing day. It is in these moments of emotional neglect, of unspoken resentment, that the seeds of infidelity are planted. It's not about lust or temptation alone. It's about the longing for connection, for understanding, for something more. And while I do not excuse or justify the pain that infidelity causes, I have come to understand its deeper roots. Behind every act of betrayal is a story of 2 people who, somewhere along the way, lost sight of each other. As someone who has lived through the highs and lows of life, I can tell you that infidelity has the power to shatter the foundation of any relationship. It brings pain, anger, and heartbreak to those who experience it. But I have also seen how it can be a catalyst for change, a dark mirror that forces us to confront the truth of our relationships and ourselves. In some cases, it has led to healing, to redemption, and to a deeper understanding of what love truly is. But in many others, it has left only regret and sorrow in its wake. Throughout my years, I have seen people broken by infidelity, and I have seen others rise from its ashes, stronger and more aware of their own needs and desires. I've watched people weep over the betrayal of their partners, only to later discover that the betrayal had been a symptom of a much deeper disconnect. Infidelity is rarely about the other person. It's about the relationship itself, the neglected emotions, the unspoken frustrations, and the unmet desires that have been simmering below the surface for far too long. And now, as I look back on all the stories I've gathered, all the tears I've witnessed, and all the heartbreaks I've shared, I want to offer you something that I hope will guide you on your own journey. Infidelity is a painful reality of life, one that touches more people than we often realize. But it is also an opportunity, if we allow it to be, to learn more about ourselves, about our partners, and about the nature of love itself. You see, love is not easy. It is not a fairy tale or a simple equation. It is messy, complicated, and often painful. But it is also the most beautiful thing we can experience. And like any living thing, it requires care, attention, and effort. Infidelity, when it strikes, is a sign that something has gone terribly wrong, that the love between two people has been neglected or forgotten. But it doesn't have to be the end of the story. With honesty, vulnerability, and a willingness to face the truth, healing can happen. So, my dear ones, as you walk through life, remember this: do not allow your relationships to fall into silence. Do not let the small cracks grow into gaping wounds. Speak your truth, nurture your connection, and never take love for granted. Infidelity is not the beginning or the end of a relationship. It is merely a chapter, one that, though filled with pain, can also lead to deeper understanding if we are brave enough to face it head-on. Let my life and my words be a lantern for you, illuminating the path forward. Embrace the beauty of connection, but also recognize its fragility. Love fiercely, but with awareness. I still vividly remember a couple who lived next door to me many years ago. They were the kind of couple that made everyone around them envious. They had what seemed to be everything: beauty, wealth, success, and an undeniable charm. From the outside looking in, their lives appeared flawless. People would often comment on how lucky they were, how perfect their relationship seemed. They were the golden couple, or at least that's what everyone believed. But as I've learned through the many decades of my life, appearances can be painfully deceiving. Behind the veneer of their perfect marriage was a darkness that few knew about, a fragile foundation just waiting to crack. The husband, who was seen as charismatic and likable by everyone in the community, carried within him a restless need that went far beyond his marriage. He thrived on admiration and attention, constantly seeking validation from others, especially women. It wasn't merely lust or physical desire that drove him, but a deeper hunger for approval, a need to feel wanted by anyone but his wife. He needed to know that he could still captivate hearts, that he was still desirable. And that craving, that empty pit inside him, led him to infidelity. His wife, an intelligent, warm, and deeply caring woman, sensed early on that something was changing in their relationship. She noticed the distance growing between them, the late nights, the vague explanations, the lack of emotional intimacy that once bonded them together. She felt the shift, the coldness creeping into their once warm and loving marriage. And yet, despite the mounting evidence, she made the heartbreaking decision to close her eyes to it all. She couldn't bear to confront the truth. Her entire life, her identity, was built around the idea that she had the perfect marriage. If she acknowledged the growing cracks, she feared it would shatter her entire world. For years, she endured this silent struggle, carrying the weight of suspicion in her heart but never daring to speak it aloud. She made excuses for him, convincing herself that his increasing absences and disinterest were just temporary, that things would get better. It was easier to pretend everything was fine than to face the terrifying possibility that her marriage might be falling apart. After all, What would people say? How would she cope with the shame of a broken marriage, especially when everyone around them saw them as the epitome of success? But then, as it always does, the truth came out, and not in a quiet, private moment of confession. No, the revelation of his infidelity was a public humiliation. It spread like wildfire through the community. People whispered behind her back, exchanged knowing glances, and offered her pitying looks that cut her deeper than any knife could. She had become the last to know, and that, perhaps, was the cruelest blow of all. Her perfect world was crumbling, and everyone had seen it coming except for her. The whispers of infidelity had been there all along, but she had chosen to ignore them. And now, she had to face the reality that the life she had clung to was nothing but an illusion. If you are still watching this video, and find these lessons useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. I tell you this story not to simply recount a painful memory, but to offer you a hard-earned piece of advice. Never turn a blind eye to the signs. As someone who has seen the best and worst in people over the years, I can tell you that infidelity rarely comes out of nowhere. The signs, though subtle at first, are always there if you are willing to see them. It may start with emotional distance. The partner who once was attentive and loving now seems distracted, disinterested, or detached. The excuses for spending time apart become more frequent. The connection that once felt unbreakable begins to fray at the edges. It's easy to convince yourself that these are just phases, that every relationship has its ups and downs. But deep down, you know when something is wrong. Confronting these signs head-on is terrifying. It means admitting to yourself that the relationship you cherish might be in jeopardy. It means having difficult conversations, asking questions that you might not want the answers to. But let me tell you, it is far less painful to face these uncomfortable truths early on than to wait until the entire foundation of your relationship has crumbled beneath you. Ignoring the signs doesn't protect you from heartbreak, it only prolongs the inevitable. And when the truth finally surfaces, the devastation is far worse, especially when you are left to grapple with the humiliation of being the last to know. Trust me when I say that I've seen countless people fall into the same trap. They choose denial over confrontation, comfort over discomfort, and in doing so, they unknowingly set themselves up for even greater pain down the road. They convince themselves that things will get better, that the distance is temporary, that their partner would never betray them. And yet, when the betrayal inevitably comes to light, it's not just the infidelity that hurts, it's the loss of trust, the realization that the life they thought they had was built on lies. One of the most difficult lessons I've learned in my long life is that relationships, no matter how strong they may seem, require constant care and attention. Neglect, whether emotional or physical, is often the first step toward infidelity. When we stop communicating, when we stop nurturing the bond that connects us, we leave space for distance and disconnection to creep in. And it is in that space that infidelity often takes root. But here's the thing, infidelity doesn't have to be the end. I've seen couples who, after facing the painful reality of betrayal, have managed to rebuild their relationships stronger than before. They confronted the issues that led to the infidelity, had difficult and honest conversations, and worked through the pain together. But that kind of healing can only happen when both partners are willing to face the truth head-on. Denial, avoidance, and silence will only lead to further destruction. So my dear ones, take this advice to heart. Do not ignore the signs. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong in your relationship, don't wait for it to get worse. Have the courage to confront the truth, no matter how painful it may be. It is better to face the discomfort now than to be blindsided by betrayal later. Relationships are fragile, and they need your attention and care. Don't let fear keep you from protecting what matters most. As I reflect on my many years, there are countless stories that come to mind. Stories of love, heartbreak, betrayal, and redemption. But one truth has stood out to me more clearly than any other. Infidelity is never solely the fault of one person. It's easy to point fingers and lay blame on the one who stepped outside the relationship, but the reality is much more complex than that. Infidelity is a tragedy that unfolds over time, often born out of two people who, for whatever reason, stopped seeing each other, stopped truly connecting, and allowed the distance between them to grow. It is the result of needs going unmet, emotions being suppressed, and conversations that were never had. When you look closely, it's not just about the act of betrayal, but about the slow unraveling of a relationship that both people, in some way, contributed to. This isn't to say that the pain of infidelity should be dismissed, or that the person who cheats shouldn't be held accountable for their actions. But I have seen time and time again how relationships start to crack long before an affair takes place. The intimacy between partners fades, replaced by silence or indifference. Resentments build up, communication breaks down, and one or both people begin to feel isolated, misunderstood, or neglected. In those moments, infidelity doesn't appear out of nowhere. It finds its way into the cracks that have been forming for years. In my decades of observing love and relationships, one lesson has become crystal clear. Honest, open communication is the key to preventing the kind of emotional distance that leads to betrayal. It's not enough to just share your surface-level thoughts and daily routines. Real communication means digging deeper, speaking your truths, sharing your fears, your desires, your frustrations, without judgment. It means being vulnerable, even when it's uncomfortable, and allowing your partner to do the same. In many relationships, couples fall into routine, and slowly, without realizing it, they stop having the kind of honest conversations that keep them emotionally connected. They drift apart, thinking everything is fine, until one day they wake up and realize they are living as strangers under the same roof. And then what? When the betrayal happens, when the affair is exposed, what do you do? This is the question so many people ask themselves, sitting in the rubble of what was once their relationship. Here lies my second hard-earned piece of advice. Infidelity does not have to be the end. It feels like the end when you first learn about it. The shock, the hurt, the anger are overwhelming. It's as if the entire foundation of your relationship has been ripped out from under you. But for some couples, this is not where the story ends. In fact, for many, infidelity becomes a catalyst for something completely unexpected, a chance to rebuild, to re-examine their relationship and, in some cases, to create something stronger than what was there before. I've seen it with my own eyes. I think back to a couple who were dear friends of mine in my youth. Their marriage, like most, had its share of ups and downs. But after many years together, they hit a particularly rough patch. The wife, feeling neglected and emotionally disconnected, sought comfort in the arms of another man. It wasn't about lust or desire. It was about the emotional void she felt in her marriage. When her husband found out, it was as if his world had collapsed. He was devastated, filled with anger, sadness, and confusion. Everything he thought he knew about their relationship seemed like a lie. At first, it seemed like the end of their marriage. They both considered walking away, too hurt and overwhelmed to see any path forward. But something remarkable happened. Instead of turning their backs on each other, they chose to confront the pain head-on. They didn't brush the betrayal under the rug or pretend it never happened. Instead, they faced it together. They went to therapy, they had countless difficult conversations, and most importantly, they listened to each other in a way they hadn't in years. Through the pain, they began to understand the underlying issues that had led to the affair. They realized that it wasn't the infidelity itself that had broken their relationship, but the years of unspoken frustration and emotional neglect that had built up between them. It wasn't an easy journey. The road to healing was long and painful. Trust, once broken, doesn't return overnight. But slowly, through patience, forgiveness, and a lot of hard work, they rebuilt their marriage. And the relationship they created after the affair was not the same as the one they had before. It was stronger. It was built on a foundation of honesty, vulnerability, and mutual respect. They both admitted that the affair, as painful as it was, forced them to address the issues they had been ignoring for years. In a strange way, it became the wake-up call they needed to reconnect on a deeper level. I share this story because I want you to know that infidelity, while devastating, does not always mean the end. For some couples, it can be a turning point. a chance to reevaluate their relationship and, if both are willing, to rebuild it in a healthier, more sustainable way. But this path is not for everyone. Rebuilding after an affair takes an extraordinary amount of effort, and both people must be fully committed to the process. It requires brutal honesty, not just with each other but with themselves. They must be willing to confront the issues that led to the betrayal in the first place, and they must be open to making changes in how they communicate, how they connect, and how they show up for each other. Forgiveness, too, is a key part of the healing process, and it's not something that comes easily. Forgiving a partner who has betrayed you is one of the hardest things you will ever have to do. It's not about forgetting the pain or pretending the betrayal didn't happen. It's about letting go of the anger and resentment that can keep you trapped in the past. Forgiveness is a choice, and it's one that takes time. For some, it may take months, for others, years. But without it, true healing cannot happen. And even with forgiveness, rebuilding trust is a slow process. Trust, once broken, doesn't magically reappear. It must be earned, little by little, through consistent actions and open communication. There will be setbacks. There will be moments when the pain feels too great, when the memories of the betrayal threaten to overshadow the progress that's been made. But if both partners are truly committed to healing, they can move forward. It's important to remember, though, that not every couple will choose this path. And that's okay. For some, the betrayal is simply too much to overcome. The wounds are too deep, and the trust too shattered to ever be repaired. Walking away from a relationship after infidelity is not a failure, it's a choice. It's a recognition that sometimes, despite our best efforts, a relationship has run its course. There is no shame in choosing to let go and start anew. Ultimately, infidelity forces us to confront the truths about our relationships, truths we may have been avoiding for years. It is a painful, often devastating experience, but it also offers a rare opportunity for growth and transformation. Whether you choose to rebuild or to walk away, the important thing is to be honest with yourself about what you need and what you're willing to give. Trust yourself to make the decision that is right for you, and know that healing, no matter what path you choose, is always possible. My dear ones, there is a truth that I must share with you, a truth that might seem harsh, but it is one that I have come to understand after living through many decades of love, heartbreak, and healing. Not every relationship can, or should, be saved. This, my third piece of advice, is perhaps the most difficult to embrace, because it challenges the deeply ingrained belief that love should conquer all, that with enough effort, every wound can be healed. But the reality is, sometimes the most courageous and self-loving act is to walk away. There are moments when holding on does more damage than letting go, and when the cracks in a relationship become too wide to mend. When it comes to infidelity, the pain is immense, and the betrayal feels like a dagger straight to the heart. The trust that once held a relationship together is shattered, and it feels like the ground has been pulled from beneath your feet. But sometimes, the affair isn't the start of the problem. It's the culmination of long-buried issues that have slowly been eating away at the foundation of your relationship. In many cases, infidelity is the final blow to a relationship that has already been unraveling for some time. I've lived through this kind of heartbreak myself. It was many, many years ago, but the memory of it remains as clear to me as if it happened yesterday. My husband, the man I married in the bloom of my youth, the man I thought would be my partner for life, strayed from our marriage during a time of great turmoil. I remember the moment I discovered his infidelity like it was frozen in time. The shock, the disbelief, the searing pain that burned through me like a fire I couldn't put out. I felt as though the world I had built, the love I had invested in, had crumbled in an instant. I couldn't breathe. My heart felt shattered beyond repair. In the days and weeks that followed, I was consumed by grief and anger. I replayed the years of our marriage over and over in my mind, trying to understand where things had gone wrong. How had we gone from being two people who adored each other to this? The betrayal was a knife twisting in my chest, but as time passed and the initial shock began to fade, I came to a difficult realization. The affair was not the disease. It was merely the symptom of a marriage that had been failing for a long time. Our relationship had been quietly deteriorating for years. We had stopped communicating on any meaningful level. We had stopped nurturing the connection that once bound us together. We had become like two strangers living in the same house, silently drifting further and further apart. His infidelity was the culmination of all the unspoken frustrations, unmet needs, and emotional distance that had been festering between us for far too long. It took me a long time to accept that our marriage wasn't worth saving. I wanted so badly to believe that we could repair the damage, that we could somehow turn back the clock and rediscover the love we once had. But deep down, I knew that the foundation of our relationship had already crumbled long before the affair. The trust was gone, the connection was severed, and the bond we had once shared had withered away. And so, with a heavy heart, I made the decision to let go. It was one of the hardest decisions I have ever made, but it was also one of the most liberating. Walking away from a relationship that no longer serves you is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of strength. It is an act of self-respect, an acknowledgement that you deserve more than to be trapped in a cycle of pain, betrayal, and emotional neglect. It is a recognition that sometimes, no matter how much love you once shared, the relationship has run its course. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Letting go was not about hatred or bitterness. In fact, I didn't hate my husband, even though he had hurt me deeply. I realized that holding on to anger and resentment would only poison my own heart. Instead, letting go was about honoring myself, my needs, and my growth. It was about choosing to walk away from something that no longer brought me happiness, that no longer allowed me to thrive. It was an act of liberation, a decision to reclaim my life and my future. I won't lie to you and say that it was easy. The road to healing after letting go was long and filled with moments of doubt, sorrow, and loneliness. But with time, I began to rediscover myself. I found strength in my independence, in the knowledge that I had the courage to walk away from a situation that no longer served me. And in doing so, I opened the door to new possibilities, to a future where I could be whole again, where I could rebuild my life on my own terms. So my dear ones, this is the message I want you to take to heart. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is knowing when to let go. Staying in a relationship that has been poisoned by infidelity, especially if the underlying issues remain unaddressed, can do more harm than good. It can trap you in a cycle of pain and resentment that prevents you from healing, from growing, and from finding true happiness. It takes immense strength to walk away, but it is a strength that will serve you well in the long run. But there is one more thing I need to share, and it is perhaps the most important lesson of all. Learn from the experience of infidelity. Whether you choose to stay and rebuild, or whether you decide to part ways and move forward, do not let the pain of betrayal be in vain. Infidelity is a brutal teacher, but it can also be a powerful source of wisdom if you allow it to be. If you stay and choose to work on the relationship, let the affair be a wake-up call to address the deeper issues that have been ignored. Use it as an opportunity to open up new lines of communication, to reconnect in ways that are honest, vulnerable, and meaningful. Healing will not happen overnight, but if both partners are committed to rebuilding the relationship, it can grow into something stronger, more resilient, and more authentic than it was before. But if you choose to let go, take the lessons of infidelity with you as you move forward. Let it teach you about your own needs, desires, and boundaries. Let it show you the importance of communication, of being honest with yourself and your partner about what you need to feel loved and supported. Learn about forgiveness, not just of your partner, but of yourself as well. Forgive yourself for the ways you may have contributed to the breakdown of the relationship, and understand that sometimes, despite our best efforts, love cannot be saved. And most importantly, let the experience teach you about your own strength, your own resilience, and your own capacity for healing. You are capable of surviving even the deepest wounds. You are capable of rebuilding, of finding happiness again, and of opening your heart to love once more, whether with your partner or someone new. Infidelity is not the end of your story, my dear ones. It is merely a chapter, and you have the power to decide how the next chapter will unfold. Whether you choose to stay or to let go, know that you have within you the strength to heal, to grow, and to find happiness again. You are worthy of love, of respect, and of a life that brings you joy. Trust yourself to make the decision that honors your needs, and know that no matter what path you choose, you will come out stronger on the other side. My dear ones, let me share with you one of life's most difficult and painful realities: infidelity. It is a trial unlike any other, a storm that can tear apart the very foundations of trust, love, and commitment. When someone we love betrays us in this way, it feels as though the ground has fallen away beneath our feet, leaving us suspended in a world of hurt, confusion, and loss. Everything we once believed about our relationship, our partner, and even ourselves comes into question. And yet, as devastating as it may seem in the moment, infidelity can also be a doorway, an opportunity for reflection, growth, and even transformation. I know this may be hard to hear, but sometimes the greatest lessons in life are born out of our deepest pains. There is no denying that infidelity shatters something precious, but within that wreckage lies the chance to rebuild, to rediscover, and to redefine who we are and what we need. At 90 years old, I speak to you from the vantage point of someone who has seen life unfold in all its complexity. I have witnessed love blossom and wither, seen relationships falter and rebuild, and lived through my own experiences of heartbreak and betrayal. Through all of it, I've come to understand that life is a dance between chaos and grace, and that sometimes the most meaningful growth comes from the moments that leave us broken open. In those moments, we are given the chance to see ourselves and our relationships with new clarity, to confront the truths we've been avoiding, and to find the strength to move forward, whether that means rebuilding together or walking away. One of the hardest lessons I have learned in my long life is that infidelity is not just about the act itself. It is about what lies beneath it, the unmet needs, the unspoken desires, and the emotional distance that often grows quietly over time. Infidelity is a symptom of something deeper, a mirror reflecting back the vulnerabilities and fractures that have developed within the relationship. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that sometimes, despite our best intentions, we lose sight of each other. We stop communicating, stop truly connecting, and in that space of disconnection, betrayal can find its way in. I want you to understand that infidelity is never the sole fault of one person. It's easy to point fingers and blame the one who strayed, but often, the affair is the culmination of years of neglect, frustration, and emotional isolation on both sides. This doesn't excuse the act, nor does it diminish the pain it causes, but it helps us see the bigger picture. Relationships require constant care and attention, and when we stop nurturing them, when we stop talking, or stop listening, we create the conditions in which betrayal can thrive. But what happens after the betrayal has been revealed? How do we pick up the pieces when everything seems broken beyond repair? This is the question that so many people face in the wake of infidelity, and there is no one right answer. Each relationship is different, each betrayal unique, and the path forward will depend on the individuals involved and the nature of their bond. Some couples choose to stay, to rebuild, and to use the experience as a turning point, a moment to reconnect and to reestablish trust. For those who choose this path, infidelity can be a catalyst for growth. It can force you to confront the issues that have been ignored, to have the difficult conversations that were once avoided, and to rebuild your relationship on a foundation of honesty and vulnerability. But this path is not easy, and it is not for everyone. It requires both partners to be fully committed to healing, to forgiveness, and to change. It takes time, patience, and an unwavering commitment to each other. I remember a couple, dear friends of mine from many years ago, whose marriage was rocked by infidelity. The wife had felt emotionally abandoned for years, and in a moment of weakness, she sought comfort outside of her marriage. When her husband discovered the affair, he was devastated, consumed by anger and hurt. But instead of walking away, they both chose to face the pain together. They went through months of therapy, had countless difficult conversations, and worked tirelessly to rebuild their trust. In time, they created a new relationship, one that was stronger and more honest than the one they had before. Their journey was not easy, but it was a testament to the power of commitment, forgiveness, and love. But not every relationship can, or should, be saved after infidelity. And this brings me to my next piece of advice. Sometimes, the bravest act of love is to let go. There are times when the betrayal is too deep, the damage too extensive, and the relationship too far gone to salvage. In these cases, walking away is not an admission of defeat. It is an act of self-preservation, of self-respect, and of self-love. Letting go does not mean you have failed. It means you have the strength to recognize when a relationship is no longer serving your growth or your happiness, and that you are brave enough to seek something better for yourself. I speak from personal experience. Many years ago, I faced my own heartbreaking encounter with infidelity. My husband, the man I had married in the bloom of my youth, betrayed me in a way I never saw coming. The discovery of his affair felt like my entire world had come crashing down around me. I was lost, devastated, and unsure of how to move forward. But as I sat with my pain, I came to realize that the affair was not the root of our problems. It was the final symptom of a marriage that had been unraveling for years. We had stopped truly seeing each other, stopped communicating, and in that space of disconnection, the betrayal found its way in. It took me a long time to accept that our marriage could not be saved. I wanted so desperately to believe that we could repair the damage, but deep down, I knew that the trust was gone, and the love we once shared had withered. Letting go was one of the hardest decisions I ever made, but it was also one of the most liberating. In choosing to walk away, I was choosing to honor myself and my needs, to seek a life that was fulfilling and whole. And while it was painful, it was also an act of self-love that I have never regretted. Letting go is not easy. It requires immense courage to release something that once meant so much to you. But sometimes, it is the only way to move forward, to find healing, and to create space for something new to grow. Whether you choose to stay and rebuild or to walk away, know that you have the strength within you to endure, to heal, and to thrive. And finally, my dear ones, my most important piece of advice: learn from infidelity. Do not let the experience be in vain. Whether you choose to rebuild your relationship or to start anew, use this painful experience as a teacher. Let it show you the importance of communication, of expressing your needs and your boundaries, and of truly listening to your partner. Let it remind you of the value of vulnerability, of honesty, and of trust. And most importantly, let it teach you about your own resilience, your own strength, and your capacity to heal. Infidelity, as painful as it is, does not have to define you or your relationship. It is a chapter in your story, but it is not the whole story. You have the power to decide how the next chapter unfolds. Whether you choose to walk the path of healing together or to embark on a new journey alone, trust that you are capable of growth, of love, and of finding joy again. So my dear ones, I offer you these words, not as someone who claims to have all the answers, but as someone who has lived through many seasons of life, love, and loss. Take heart in knowing that you are not alone, that you are stronger than you think, and that no matter how dark the storm may seem, there is always light on the horizon. You will rise from this, as I have seen countless others rise, with wisdom, strength, and the knowledge that you are worthy of love, respect, and happiness. If you are still watching this video, and find these lessons useful, please comment number 3 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. My dear ones, life has a way of teaching us through the moments we least expect, and often through those that bring us the greatest heartache. Infidelity is one of these moments. It is a trial so deep and profound that it leaves no part of a relationship untouched. When someone we love betrays our trust, it feels like the world as we knew it crumbles away, leaving us with shattered pieces of the life we once held dear. The emotional devastation can be overwhelming, and the path forward is often unclear. However, within the pain, within the heartache, there lies an unexpected opportunity, one that offers a chance for reflection, growth, and transformation. Infidelity has a unique way of forcing us to confront the parts of ourselves and our relationships that we may have been avoiding for far too long. As painful as it is, it presents us with the undeniable truth that something has gone terribly wrong, not just in the relationship, but often within ourselves. It calls into question our understanding of trust, love, and loyalty, and challenges us to re-examine what it is that we truly want and need in our partnerships. It demands that we look at the cracks that have been quietly forming beneath the surface, long before the betrayal took place. I share these words with you from a place of experience and deep reflection. At 90 years old, I have lived through many seasons of love, joy, heartbreak, and healing. I have seen the way relationships rise and fall, and I have felt the sting of betrayal in my own life. But through all of it, I have come to understand that life's most painful lessons often contain the seeds of our greatest wisdom. Infidelity, though it may feel like the end, is often the beginning of a journey towards self-discovery, personal growth, and greater understanding. It can serve as a mirror, reflecting back to us the truths we may have been too afraid to face. One of the most important lessons I've learned is that infidelity is rarely about the act itself. It is not just about a physical betrayal, but about the deeper emotional disconnect that has been growing unnoticed over time. Relationships are like living organisms, and they need constant care, communication, and attention to thrive. When we stop tending to our emotional needs, when we stop truly seeing and hearing each other, we create a space where disconnection can take root. The betrayal itself is often just the final breaking point, a symptom of the unresolved issues that have been quietly festering beneath the surface. In my own life, I experienced this firsthand. Many years ago, I was faced with the devastating discovery of my husband's infidelity. At first, I was consumed by anger, grief, and disbelief. I couldn't understand how the man I had shared my life with, the man I had trusted so completely, could betray me in such a way. But as time passed, and as I began to reflect on the years leading up to his betrayal, I realized that the affair was not the cause of our problems. It was the result of years of emotional distance and unresolved pain. We had stopped communicating, stopped nurturing the bond that had once held us together, and in that space of silence and neglect, the betrayal found its way in. It took me a long time to come to terms with this truth, but when I did, I realized something powerful. Infidelity, though painful, can be a moment of awakening. It forces us to take a hard look at ourselves, our relationships, and the patterns that have led us to this point. It is an opportunity to ask the difficult questions, to examine what went wrong, and to decide how we want to move forward. This is where the real work begins. What do you truly desire in a relationship? This is the first question you must ask yourself. Often, in the day-to-day grind of life, we lose sight of what we really need to feel fulfilled and connected. We get caught up in routines, in the roles we play as partners, parents, and professionals, and we forget to check in with our own hearts. But infidelity forces us to pause and reflect. What do you need from a partner to feel loved, valued, and supported? What do you need to feel whole within yourself? These are the questions that will guide you as you navigate the path forward. Once you have clarity on what you truly desire, the next step is to ask, what unspoken needs have I ignored in myself or my partner? Infidelity often arises not because one person is inherently unfaithful, but because there are deep emotional needs that have gone unaddressed for far too long. Perhaps you have felt neglected, unappreciated, or emotionally distant. Or maybe your partner has felt the same, but neither of you has had the courage to speak those truths aloud. Unmet needs, when left unspoken, have a way of festering beneath the surface, creating resentment and disconnection. Infidelity is often the result of those needs finding an outlet in the wrong place. But here's the most crucial part. How can I communicate these needs more openly and honestly? Communication is the cornerstone of any healthy relationship, yet it is the area where many of us struggle the most. We fear vulnerability, we fear conflict, and so we stay silent. We assume our partner knows what we need, or we convince ourselves that our needs are not important enough to voice. But silence is a breeding ground for disconnection, and disconnection is the breeding ground for betrayal. The only way to prevent this cycle is to create an environment where open, honest communication can thrive. Learning to communicate effectively is a skill that takes time and practice. It means being brave enough to share your truth, even when it's uncomfortable, and creating a space where your partner feels safe to do the same. It means asking the hard questions and being willing to hear the answers. even if they are not what you want to hear. But it is through this kind of communication that true connection is built, and it is through connection that trust can be restored. For those who choose to rebuild after infidelity, this is the path forward. Rebuilding trust takes time. It requires both partners to be fully committed to the process, to healing, and to each other. There will be moments of doubt, pain, and uncertainty, but with patience, vulnerability, and a willingness to grow together, it is possible to create a new foundation, one that is stronger, more honest, and more resilient than before. But there is another path, and that is the path of letting go. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is to walk away. Not every relationship is meant to survive infidelity, and not every betrayal can be forgiven. There are times when the damage is too great, when the trust is too broken, and when the relationship has reached its natural end. In those cases, choosing to let go is not a failure. It is an act of self-love and self-respect. It is an acknowledgement that you deserve more than what the relationship can offer, and that your happiness and well-being must come first. I know this path well, for it is the one I ultimately chose. Letting go was one of the hardest decisions I ever made, but it was also one of the most liberating. It allowed me to reclaim my life, to rediscover my own strength, and to create a future that was no longer defined by the betrayal. Letting go is not about giving up on love. It is about choosing yourself. It is about recognizing that your worth is not determined by someone else's actions, and that you are deserving of a love that honors and respects you fully. Whichever path you choose, whether you stay and rebuild, or whether you walk away, know that you have the strength within you to heal and to rise. Infidelity may break your heart, but it does not break you. You are resilient, you are powerful, and you are capable of creating a life filled with love, joy, and fulfillment, whether that is with your partner or on your own. So, my dear ones, as you reflect on the complexities of infidelity, remember this: heartbreak is not the end, it is a beginning. It is an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to become more of who you truly are. Let it be a moment of awakening, a time to reconnect with yourself and to honor your deepest needs. Trust that you have the strength to face whatever comes next, and know that no matter how painful the storm, there is always light on the other side. My dear ones, let me share something that life has taught me through the course of 9 decades. Infidelity, no matter how heartbreaking, is not the conclusion of your story. It might feel like the darkest chapter, a chapter where trust has been shattered, where love feels like it's crumbling in your hands. But even the darkest moments can give way to light. What you are going through now may feel like the end, but I assure you, it is not. You hold the power to write the next chapter, to decide how this story unfolds from here. And that next chapter can be one of healing, profound self-discovery, and personal growth, if you allow it to be. In my many years, I have seen just about every facet of love, its joys, its struggles, its beauty, and yes, its betrayals. I have known couples who have walked through fire together, rebuilding what was broken after infidelity, and I have known those who chose to part ways with grace, allowing themselves to grow in different directions. Through it all, one truth has stood firm: every relationship will be tested. There is no such thing as a love that doesn't face its challenges, no perfect union that is immune to the trials of life. But what truly defines us is not the betrayal or the hardship itself, it is how we choose to respond to it. When you are faced with betrayal, the pain is undeniable. It can feel as though the very ground beneath you has shifted, leaving you in a free fall of uncertainty. Infidelity strikes at the heart of trust, and trust is the foundation of any relationship. It's natural to feel lost in this moment, unsure of where to turn or how to move forward. But I want you to know that you have the strength within you to rise from this, no matter how deep the pain may feel right now. I know this because I have witnessed people transform through their pain. I have seen people grow into a version of themselves they never thought possible, discovering resilience, wisdom, and self-worth they didn't know they possessed. Sometimes, it is the hardest lessons in life that teach us the most about who we are and what we need. Infidelity is one of those lessons, a harsh, often brutal one, but also one that can serve as a mirror to reflect the truths we may have been avoiding. You see, infidelity doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It rarely comes out of nowhere, and more often than not, it is a symptom of something deeper, something that has been building quietly beneath the surface. It is a reflection of unmet needs, unspoken frustrations, and emotional distances that may have been left unaddressed for too long. This does not excuse the act of betrayal, but it helps us to understand why it happened and how we can learn from it. As you sit with the pain of this moment, I encourage you to ask yourself the deeper questions. What is it that you truly desire in a relationship? Too often, we get so caught up in the daily routine of life that we forget to pause and reflect on what we really need. We forget to ask ourselves whether we are being nourished emotionally, whether we feel valued and heard, whether we are giving and receiving love in ways that sustain us. These are the kinds of questions that can bring clarity and guide us as we move forward, whether that means rebuilding the relationship or choosing to walk away. It is equally important to reflect on the unspoken needs that may have been ignored, either in yourself or in your partner. Infidelity often stems from emotional disconnection, from needs that have been left unmet for too long. Perhaps your partner has felt unseen, unappreciated, or emotionally distant. Or perhaps you, too, have felt these things but have been afraid to voice them. Relationships are complex, and when communication breaks down, when needs go unspoken, the bond begins to fray. The affair is often just the visible manifestation of a deeper fracture that has been forming for some time. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment number 4 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. But the most crucial question of all is this: how can I better communicate my needs moving forward? Whether you choose to stay in the relationship or decide to part ways, this question is key to your healing and growth. Communication is the lifeblood of any healthy relationship, yet it is also one of the hardest things for most of us to do. We fear vulnerability, we fear conflict, and so we stay silent. We assume that our partner knows what we need, or worse, we convince ourselves that our needs don't matter. But in doing so, we allow emotional distance to grow, and it is that distance that often leads to betrayal. Learning to communicate effectively requires courage, patience, and a willingness to be vulnerable. It means being honest with yourself about what you need, and being brave enough to express those needs to your partner, even if it feels uncomfortable. It also means creating a space where your partner can do the same. This kind of communication takes time and practice, but it is essential if you are to build or rebuild a relationship that is rooted in trust, respect, and emotional intimacy. If you choose to stay and rebuild, know that the journey ahead will not be easy. Rebuilding trust after infidelity takes time, patience, and a deep commitment from both partners. There will be setbacks, moments of doubt, and times when the pain resurfaces. But with effort, vulnerability, and a willingness to confront the deeper issues that led to the betrayal, it is possible to create a relationship that is stronger and more authentic than it was before. I have seen couples rise from the ashes of infidelity, their love deepened by the trials they have faced. They are living proof that healing is possible, even after betrayal. However, there is also another path, one that requires a different kind of strength. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is let go. There are times when the betrayal is too deep, when the trust has been too shattered, and when the relationship no longer serves your well-being. In those moments, choosing to walk away is not a sign of failure. It is an act of self-respect, a decision to prioritize your own happiness and emotional health. Letting go is not easy, but sometimes it is the only way to truly heal. I speak from experience. Many years ago, I too was faced with the devastating discovery of infidelity. At first, I wanted to hold on, to fix what was broken, to believe that we could rebuild. But over time, I realized that the betrayal had revealed deeper truths about our relationship, truths that I had been unwilling to face. The trust was gone, and no amount of effort could restore what had been lost. Letting go was one of the hardest decisions I ever made, but it was also one of the most freeing. It allowed me to reclaim my sense of self, to heal on my own terms, and to create a new life that was rooted in self-love and self-respect. And so, my dear ones, I leave you with this thought. Whether you choose to stay and rebuild, or whether you choose to walk away, remember that you are not defined by this moment. You are not broken. You are not diminished by the betrayal you have experienced. You are whole, and you are capable of healing and growing beyond this pain. The most important relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. So nurture it, protect it, and never let anyone take it for granted. Life is too short to live in fear or regret. Love with all your heart, but do so with open eyes and clear boundaries. Know when to fight for a relationship, and know when it's time to let go. And most of all, remember that you deserve a love that honors and respects you fully. You deserve a life filled with joy, peace, and fulfillment, whether that is with your partner or on your own. Now that we've explored the hidden reasons why money and abundance might be slipping away, I want to ask you, what have you learned so far? Share one thing you've discovered in this video that you plan to bring into your life to start attracting more prosperity in the comments below. If you like this video, please leave your comment, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more insightful content.